I don't have a huge amount of time for this video. I have to go to work. No, I've not been to bed. I think I dozed off for like an hour or so. But when real men can't sleep, real men do the news. So here is this real man doing the news right now. This is probably going to be the last UFO episode. I have the show today on Fault Lines. It's going to be the UFO part, but that's because of the report. And the report has basically, I would say, necessitated the series of reporting that I've done over the weekend because I kind of want to give people my context. To me, and from the way I look at it, because the UFO issue is real, we're dealing with something that may be a paradigm shift. And because it may be a paradigm shift, how people take this will have larger ramifications later on. Meaning, if it goes into the Nick Pope thing saying they basically attacked America, if it's that, and Fox News viewers who for the first time are seeing this issue come away with the first impression of, oh my God, we're under attack, or there's some kind of threat, we will pay for that later on in regard to the things that we're going to have to kind of unravel. What I hope is that we hit this more so with a clear-eyed take. I would even say, dare I say, more so of a scientific take, even though that's somewhat difficult to do because everything is basically in the black. That said, taking this in the overt way we are being given, because I don't buy for a moment that they don't know whether or not this is our tech or not, meaning of this planet or not. And because I don't necessarily buy that, I always feel like this is being managed, that this is being delivered in a way as to do one step after the next in somewhat of a slow, plodding fashion. We don't want to freak the public out. We want to give the public this kind of elimination of other items to get to the end point, if that makes sense. We're going to have congressional hearings. You can look at the document and you can hear Rubio's responses and everything else. The congressional hearings will come. The document necessitates it on some level. The Department of Defense created basically an X-Files division. It bolstered and the UAP task force and expanded the capabilities of it, even in regards to this notion of information collection among multiple agencies. All of the alphabet soup of agencies stood by the report, a report that basically says there's technology we're encountering where we can't necessarily ascertain the intent of the technology because our systems aren't equipped for it. We don't have the people and the personnel or the resources in order to dedicate to it. They would require more of a resource-intensive procedure in order to even get information necessary to ascertain what our pilots are encountering. And the report even hits at this notion of, look, the fact or the giggle factor or the factor of this being so big that when people talk about it, they're ridiculed, or for that matter, might even lose rank, that they just shut up. They just don't talk about it. That in and of itself creates a headwind for us to get the scientific research necessary to understand what we're encountering. The report does all of that. The report basically says, from here on out, UFOs are real things. And the only question is whether they're China, Russia, or aliens. Because on the overt level, which again, I don't entirely buy, but okay, whatever, the report is saying they're not us, meaning it's not US tech. But let's throw that away for the moment and say, let's drop US tech to be a potential. You're still stuck with this notion of it's either us or it's not. The idea of it not being anything is off the table. The Department of Defense, we may, in the UFO community, be very ecstatic with this report that it came out. And I understand when I say that there are a lot of people in the UFO community that are not entirely happy with the report. Like I said, I think those people are magnificently and thoroughly wrong. This report is groundbreaking in the fact that it does the first thing that you would ever need, which is, this is real. You languish in this idea of ridicule, or this idea that, okay, there may be something there, but the government never accepts it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've languished in this for 70, 80 years. And all of a sudden, in one brimming moment, one report, gone. It's real. One report that you found to be greatly unremarkable is the thing that has legitimized the UFO issue. And more importantly than legitimizing it, and this is kind of what I want to get to. What I'm talking about right now is not going to be touched upon probably for a while, but it should be touched upon. The Department of Defense has a lot of explaining to do. Now, what I mean by that is taking them at their word and taking this on the overt level. The Department of Defense's job is national security. The president's job on some level is national security. Those are the areas where the president shines. You could say war is the beating heart of the state, or in this case, the military is the beating heart of the state. Fair enough. We've just been told in a report that there is advanced technology that we can't ascertain the intent that has been invading our military installations on more than one occasion. The report is limited to like 10 years. I think it's a little bit more than 10 years. But the fact that the report is limited to 10 years and is limited to very few instances, and even within the context of that, it gets across that our installations have been visited, invaded, if you want to call it that, in the sense of defense. And we don't know what it is and can't replicate it. The Department of Defense has questions to answer. How long have you known this? How long has this been taking place? Not just how long has this been taking place. What did you know? When did you know it? How long have you been keeping it a secret? What did you do to keep it a secret? And who did you do it to in order to keep that secret? Was there installation or instantiation of a gigafactor associated with it in order to conceal the information? I mean, the argument or the thing that we're being led to believe is that technology has been encountered by our military personnel. And because of behavior at the time, that it is an operative question to know, how long have you known this? I know as I say that Obama knew, which means that Obama was briefed, which means that Obama or the presidency knew and didn't tell the public. And not just didn't tell the public, it would also mean that some aspects of defense knew and didn't tell the public. That it was of enough worth and concern to address and tell the president about it, because Obama, again, knew, despite the fact he didn't tell. But for whatever reason, the public wasn't alerted. What is it? In the context of what is it? What country around the globe is using this level of advanced technology? And what country around the globe is not just using it, how is it doing what it does? What country and when did they develop this advanced technology? And how long have you known that the country has had this particular advanced technology? And if you can't necessarily tell me the country that has this advanced technology, at the very least you can tell me at some level how it works. What is the physics behind it? Is it breaking our understanding of physics? Is it a paradigm shift? And how long have you known it was a paradigm shift? It is indeed that. There's also the question the Department of Defense have to answer. Why didn't you think it was of concern that something apparently was hanging around our military installations? What did you do to try to prevent that behavior? Meaning for those items and that technology to be in our particular military installations and sensitive spaces. Did you do anything to prevent it? Who did you alert? Did you tell Congress? How is this not relevant and important? We consider defense being the greatest priority, right? And even the context of this issue, or talk about this issue, is being put to defense so the public and Congress can take it seriously. Look at the report. The report says this was clearly a potential issue for national security. What I'm getting at is, okay, fair enough, the report is out. What country around the globe is using this advanced technology? The Department of Defense needs to explain that to the American public. How is this advanced technology working? The Department of Defense needs to explain that to the American public. How long has the Department of Defense known that this advanced technology was operating in our sensitive military installations? And, again, did the public or was Congress and was the president alerted as these things was taking place? I have a ton of these questions. Look, this even gets into something that's a little bit more that's a little bit more interesting. We spend $1 trillion a year on our military budget. That's known. That's in the clear. That's in the known. What country has leapfrogged us? And how did they leapfrog us? And what was the pathway, technological innovation and engineering that allowed them to do it? Especially since you're given $1 trillion of the American purse. You need to explain how this happened. How did you fail so? And this, when you think about it, considering that we know that the fact that this is now real, that considering this is real, that people have been reporting this going back for decades. Meaning that our sensitive military installations have been breached for decades. That our pilots have been encountering technology that far surpasses our own for decades. That technology was of such significance that they looked at it and said, this can't be from us. And so radically different that they couldn't even ascertain intent. Why doesn't that need to be explained? And how is it that a failure of security, of intelligence, of an unprecedented level, if indeed this is from another foreign actor? And if you can't tell us the foreign actor, that makes it that much worse in regards to the level of failure that is appropriated here. I'm trying to get across that because the issue is now real, and we can look back over the course of time, and we can look over the course of time and say, whoa, you're talking about decades where this has been taking place, and that they've had no answers, and not just had no answers, acted as if it wasn't real. But the fact that they're acting as if something is not real that is real is a dramatic problem. That's a dramatic problem. And so for the last 50 years, there's been a security and intelligence failure. And instead of dealing with the reality of it, they've decided to make it a non-issue. And not just a non-issue, make what seems to be something that far superior to our own resources and capabilities. And instead of dealing with that head on, instead of addressing the public and letting the public know what is going on, instead of addressing Congress and letting Congress know what is going on, the Department of Defense basically stayed mum. And it is very likely that not just stayed mum, attacked people who wanted to get the information out. Last 2 points. I don't know who's running this ball. And I don't think anybody, at least on the outside, looking up, we can only see what is above and only from below, who's running the ball. Now, what I mean by that is this factions within the context of, let's say, the alphabet soup of agencies or whatever else that is putting this out, meaning you have some element that wants to put it out, you have some element that doesn't. But because of the information and the way that it was thrown into the press, that there was forced almost politically to put out a report, which immediately, once the report came out, necessitated something else. Or is it a united front? And in the context of it being united front, it's we want to get this out. We want to get this information out to the public. We know that Elizondo is going to be considered a spook by the UFO community, and we need to give him credibility. And that credibility is conferred by basically attacking Elizondo, but not doing so in a way that would entirely undermine whatever he's saying. In fact, the very fact that we're attacking him gives him a certain degree of credibility in the UFO community, as you have some elements who are trying to stop Elizondo from talking, and because they're trying to stop him from talking, clearly he's trying to say something that's relevant. Also, because I don't know who's paying him, it's impossible for me to know his purpose and objective. I think this is just being honest. Now, I like Elizondo. I had him on the show. I would love for Elizondo to come back on the show. But I think that's fair. We're in the dark on that point, too. And so I don't know if it's, okay, this is a united front. We're trying to get the information out, but we need to play this kind of weird way of doing this so people would take it seriously and won't necessarily disregard it in the way that it is being released. I don't know. If the Pentagon wanted to kill the UFO story, they would have just destroyed the videos. They would have said, these videos are nonsense. Also, pursuant to that, Um, I don't know why this is coming out now. That's the other part that we're in the dark on. Why now? This could have came out at any particular point. Why now? The last point is we have been, I don't know if this is completely true, but I think it's true. The information that's been coming out for God knows how long over the course of the last several years, 10, 15, 15, 20, whatever, how many years. The drip of data. Just because it wasn't necessarily taken seriously, or just because it was called conspiracy theory and everything else, doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't seeded into the consciousness of the public. Meaning, if you needed to get something across to the public that was going to be a paradigm shift, like you're not alone in the universe, maybe coming out and saying it right off the bat, when you can't necessarily predict the consequences, is not something that you would do. What you may do is seed it into the public. You may drop the information in movies and literature and the theater, have people talk about it, have people banter about it. Even if they're saying this is nonsense, this is swamp gas, you're going to have an element of the public that believes it and is going to get this kind of public consciousness about it, even if they disbelieve it. Meaning, everybody knows how a gray alien looks, right? Why? Even the people who disbelieve gray aliens know what a gray alien looks like. That stuff has been dropped and seeded into the public consciousness where it becomes somewhat of a thing. So the moment that it says, hey, maybe there's water on Mars, hey, maybe there's life, bacterial on Mars, this stuff becomes less mind-blowing. It allows the public to accept something in this kind of cognitive way that doesn't necessarily breach or trigger its fight or flight or trigger its panic instinct. And so by the time you finally do come across the horizon of it, it's less dramatic, despite the fact that it's profound and dramatic. Look, I don't know if that's a flat back true, but it does seem like that could be something that is true in the way it is being managed, especially if I'm right and this information and the way it's being let out is being managed now. I think they're trying to take the public one step at a time to the realization that this is not us. And you do that by one report after the next, elimination of options until you get to the final point of saying, this is where we are. A politician would never do that because a politician can't take the chance politically of doing that. What they will do is have commissions, they will have reports, they will have studies, they will have all that stuff. You will have congressional investigations, and one step after the next, inexorably leading to, we're not alone. Some people are already there, especially some of the people who've already seen the classified data and who've seen behind the scenes. For example, Ratcliffe. I want to point out that the report doesn't undercut, doesn't step back one iota from the things that Elizondo, Ratcliffe, Rubio, or the other people that have been behind the scenes have been able to see the intelligence reports. Ratcliffe.
Is with unidentified aerial phenomenon, many cases, Dan, were able to explain it away for reasons like visual disturbances or weather phenomenon or foreign adversaries and their technologies, or even our own experimental technologies with certain aircraft and vehicles. But what this report really underscores, Dan, is that there are a number of instances, and the specific number remains classified, but a number of instances where we've ruled all of that out. And there are technologies that we don't have, and frankly, that we're not capable of defending against based on those things that we've seen, multiple sensors. In other words, where not just people visually see it, but where it's picked up on radar, where it's seen on satellites. And so, it's an issue of national security. And as the person who was informing policymakers about national security threats, it's not good to say, gosh, we don't have good answers. And so we have to have a larger discussion to try and figure out specifically, what this is all.
They would have to be idiots to not be able to know our own capabilities and on some level have an appraisal of the capabilities of foreign adversaries. It would be an unprecedented intelligence failure for them not to know. Ratcliffe's point is, it's not us. We don't think it's Russia and China. It's something else. We need to figure out what it is. And from the standpoint of the UFO community, you don't really need to have the conversation about aliens. The only conversation you need to have is, We need further research. We need further investigation. This issue is real. And all of the things that extend from that issue will fall out of this issue. And everything is on the table. Whatever that means to you. And the extent that means. And this is, there would need to be a fight with keeping this from going into this idea of a threat. There would need to be a fight to keep this from this going into this notion of we need to invest $10 trillion in weapons and that. All that stuff is going to be things that have to be pushed against. Even this notion of falling into this idea of fear. All of that stuff would have to be fought against. But at the very least for now, day one, it's real. And on the second point, the Department of Defense has a lot of explaining to do. Like, share,